What's the biggest mistake that people make when buying car insurance? Hi, I'm personal injury trial lawyer Brian O'Connor. I'm going to explain to you what the biggest mistake is when buying car insurance and how to avoid it. So number one, let's talk about car insurance. If you're in a car accident, you obviously have to call up your insurance company and let them know that you were in an accident. So what I want to do is go through the different parts of an insurance policy and explain how each one of them applies and try and help you avoid making mistakes when getting car insurance. So number one, if you're in an accident and you're the one that actually causes the collision, you've got to be concerned about whether or not you have liability for injuries to someone in the other vehicle, injuries to people in your vehicle, as well as property damage to both vehicles. So the first part of every insurance policy is mandatory in New York State. It's called bodily injury or liability insurance. And what that does is, that is an amount of money that your insurance company will essentially provide for you in case someone is injured. And New York has a minimum requirement when you get car insurance that everyone has to have at least $25,000 in bodily injury coverage. So if you injure someone else in an accident, you have up to $25,000 in insurance coverage to cover their losses. Now that's the minimum, but I always recommend to anyone to pay for as much bodily injury coverage as you can. Because if someone has a significant injury and you only have $25,000 in coverage, you could be personally liable for anything above the insurance policy limit of $25,000. You can get as much as you can afford. You really would be surprised how little the premium would go up in order to provide coverage for yourself, to go from $25,000 in coverage for bodily injury up to $100,000 or $300,000, which I would really recommend at least $300,000 or more if you can afford it. But when you call up and you want to get insurance, ask them what would the difference be in my premium if I went from $25,000 in bodily injury up to $100,000. And then what if I went up to $300,000? How much more would it be? Because it's really important to kind of protect yourself from that personal liability if in fact you do injure someone in an accident. Okay, the second part I want to cover is something that's called collision insurance. So collision insurance is when you're in an accident and your vehicle is damaged. So if your vehicle is damaged, even if it's caused by someone other than you, you can obviously bring a claim against the other driver for the property damage to your car. But if you have collision coverage on your own policy, it's just a lot easier and it's a lot faster because your insurance company will actually pay to have your vehicle repaired pretty much as soon as the accident happens. You don't have to really worry about proving anything because you already have the coverage as part of your policy. If you don't have collision coverage on your insurance policy, you're going to have to file a claim with the at-fault driver and that driver's insurance company. They could deny your claim, they could delay your claim. They pretty much are in no real legal requirement to pay for the property damage to your vehicle under any type of time constraints. So they can really drag it out. So the best thing is, if it makes sense for you, is to have the collision coverage on part of your policy, okay? The other part of every insurance policy in New York State is called personal injury protection, or PIP. It's also known as no-fault coverage. And this coverage is going to provide for anyone that's in your vehicle at the time of a collision. So it's the operator of the car as well as any passengers in your vehicle. And the way it works is, even if it's a 2 or 3 car accident, the insurance company that is required to pay under the no-fault or the PIP part of the coverage, it's each vehicle's insurance coverage pays for those people that are in that particular car. So it's not the person or people that caused the accident. Each individual car covers the no-fault for all the occupants of that vehicle. So if you're in an accident, your insurance company will take care of the no-fault or PIP benefits for everyone in your car. Now, what are PIP benefits? What's no-fault benefits? Essentially, no-fault benefits include lost wages if you're out of work as a result of your injuries, as well as medical bills. So you don't have to prove fault. You basically just have to show that your injuries were a result of the auto accident, and then your auto insurance policy under the PIP provision will pay for all of your medical treatment up to a limit. And in New York, the limit is $50,000. So you have up to $50,000 in a combination of medical bills as well as lost wages. Now you also have an ability to get optional PIP or optional additional no-fault benefits above the $50,000. If you're in an accident and you require additional treatment that goes above the $50,000, again, your insurance company is only responsible to pay up to the limit of your policy. You'd either have to use your own health insurance if you have it, or you're going to end up being out of your own pocket, and you'll have to file a claim against the other driver if it goes above the PIP limits. The next part of the coverage that's really important is instead of the bodily injury and instead of the collision, we have something called comprehensive insurance. It basically protects you when it comes to damage to your vehicle that is outside of a collision. So we're talking about theft of your vehicle, we're talking about vandalism or a natural disaster. If your vehicle is damaged or stolen, if you have comprehensive insurance, then your policy through your auto insurance will actually pay to replace the vehicle. Okay, so those are the different parts. The most important part of your auto insurance policy that I have not even discussed yet is something called uninsured coverage, uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Now, this coverage would apply in a situation where you're in an accident and it was caused by the fault of someone else, but that other driver had no insurance at all or didn't have enough insurance to cover your injuries. So for instance, if you're in an accident and let's say it's a hit and run, the person hits you and then takes off, you don't know who it is. That's essentially an injury caused by an uninsured driver because you can't identify who that driver is. If that happens to you, you can actually file a claim with your own insurance company, underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage provision. Now, the important thing to remember is you can file that claim with your insurance company if it was a hit and run or the driver ends up not having insurance, but you only get coverage up to a certain amount that's in your policy. So for instance, if you have bodily injury of $25,000, you likely have your uninsured or underinsured coverage typically matches your bodily injury limits. So it would also be limited to $25,000. So you really want to make sure that your insurance policy not only has increased amount of bodily injury coverage in case you cause an injury to someone else, but you also want to make sure that your uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage is also higher than the $25,000. It really protects you and it protects your family if you're injured by a driver who doesn't have any insurance or who has too little insurance. So go back to your insurance broker or your insurance company and you really want to ask them, what's my bodily injury coverage? If it's only $25,000, you want to increase that to as much as you can afford, $100,000, $300,000 or more than that. And also make sure that the uninsured motorist coverage and underinsured motorist coverage is increased as well to at least as much as you really can afford. Because if someone causes an injury to you and they don't have enough insurance, you're really not going to be in a position to be able to do anything about it, unfortunately. So that's really one of the biggest parts of your insurance policy that you really need to take a look at, review it. If you're unsure what type of coverage that you have or what type of coverage you should buy, you can feel free to give us a call at the office. I'd be happy to review the policy you do have or answer any questions that you might have about what type of coverage you should get. Our office number is 718-948-3500, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.